What's up everyone? Crafting and upgrading items in Path of Exile 2 is pretty complicated, and when you get to endgame, it just gets more confusing. Every single endgame system has a rewards system that leads to new items, new materials that you can use for crafting. So today I wanted to go over a full endgame crafting guide so that you can make better gear and you can make your best in slot. You can make the top high-end items that will help you progress the endgame. And we'll go over all of the rewards from the endgame activities. So the catalysts and breach rings that you get from doing breaches, the expedition reward system that lets you tailor items with the fragments that you get from the chests in the expeditions. And then things like the Omens from tributes that let you tweak how we use our endgame crafting materials. I'm going to go into a lot of detail on these different systems, so if you do find it useful, do consider subscribing to the channel. But let's get straight into this. First up, let's talk the basics, and then we'll get into the more detailed stuff and the endgame stuff. Okay, first the absolute basics. And I do have a full beginner's crafting guide if you'd rather watch that. But let's start with just the basics of crafting. I'm going to make myself a little bit smaller so I can show more of the screen. So the basics of crafting is I've got everything here in my the tab for the different materials. So the basic things to know is if you have a basic item here, this is a white item or a standard item, then you can use the Orb of Transmutation. You make it into a blue. You use the Orb of Augmentation. You add an affix to it. Now it has 2 affixes. Then you use an orb of a Regal Orb, and you turn it into a yellow rare item. That is kind of like the final version of the item. Then you can use Exalted Orbs to add extra affixes onto that rare item, just like that. So that's the basics of how you craft. You basically take an item, you jam a bunch of materials into them, and you turn them from normal into rare, from magic into rare, things like that. So before we get into like crafting and upgrading these items, we need a good base item. We need a good item to dump all these materials into. So what makes a good base item? Firstly, you want an item that is around your level. So I'm level 87 on this character. So I would be looking for items around level 80 to 87 so that it has a higher roll on it. A high level item can have better stats. So that's the first thing. The second thing you're looking for is a good implicit affix. So this is a thing that comes on the item before all of the stats. So I'll show you on this item here, we have a ring, the Grim Eye Prismatic Ring. This is just a standard drop. It was a yellow ring. And you can see here, there's this line here. And below this line comes all of the affixes, all of the stats. So you can see here on this one, like all of the stats come below the line. So on this ring, there is the line. Before it is like the implicit. This is the thing that came on the ring first. The thing that makes this ring a prismatic ring. And that's the elemental resistances. So yeah, the first thing is looking for a good implicit, like the elemental resistances is great. The next thing is a good tier roll. So when you look at your items, if you hold down Alt, I think it's like thumbstick on controller to look at the details of something. If you press Alt and you see the tiers, so you see down the right side, we've got tier 1, tier 11, tier 4, and tier 6. That is the tier of the affix, and a higher tier will roll a higher number. So if you find an item, hold down Alt, look at the tier, and if it is a high tier roll on a stat you want, that is a good item to craft on. Some options to look for is things for your build. So physical damage being a high roll on a weapon is really good. Movement speed on boots is really good. Anything over like 25%, 30% is really, really good. Levels to spells like +4 to all lightning spells, things like that are really good. Another thing is while you're out fighting monsters and you see those drops, especially at endgame, you'll see things drop at a higher tier. So you'll see like an item and then next to it, it'll have like a level. So that means that everything, when you identify it, will be above that base level. So if you see like a club tier 4, everything that initially rolls will be 4 or above. So that's a chance at a really, really good item, especially one that you can start crafting on. Yeah, getting a good base item would be step 1. Okay, so while we're talking about rings, that brings us to the first big endgame system, and that's breaches. Breaches can reward 2 things that are really important for endgame gearing: breach rings and catalysts. Now, if you've never done a breach, once you get to the end game and you open your map device, you're looking for these things here. These like clasping hands, these purple open hands. That means there is a breach in that map. When you go in the map, you'll find these hand icons somewhere. You'll go over to these big hands and it will open up a big circle and monsters will rush you. And these monsters can drop 2 things. They can drop a few things, but they can drop these things here, the catalysts and the breach rings. So let's talk about them. First, I want to talk about the catalysts. So if we read the description of this catalyst, of the top one here, adds quality that enhances physical modifiers on a ring or amulet replaces other quality types. So if you know nothing about quality, I'm going to give you the basic, simplest understanding of it. I've got these boots here. If we were to upgrade the quality of these boots normally, you would take these little section here, upgrades quality. So if we took the armor scraps, improves the quality of an armor. If I improve the quality of these boots, look at the evasion rating and the energy shield. 95 and 36. If I upgrade it, 97 and 37. So the quality upgrades the base stats of the item. So kind of like if it's a piece of armor, it would be the evasion, the energy shield, the armor, that kind of thing. It doesn't mess with the movement speed or the rarity of items found. It's just the things that increase your defenses. So that's how quality works, generally speaking. Now, these catalysts, and quality can go to 20%. So you see here it's 15. Quality can only go to 20% on every item. So the way these catalysts work is, again, they only go to 20% on most items, but they increase a specific thing on the item. So all these different catalysts will do a different thing. This will enhance life modifiers. This will enhance physical modifiers, chaos modifiers, cold modifiers, which means if you're playing like a ice monk build, you want to improve cold damage, you can do that with these items. So if I look at, I think my ring's already, okay, this one has mana modifiers lot. So I've been pumping up the mana on this ring. So you can see here, quality, mana modifier, plus 17, which means my mana is 179 max mana. However, when we look at it, it's 209. So the roll on the tier is a tier 12, which means I have 179 mana on that ring. But because I'm using the catalyst, a mana catalyst, the mana number is going up, which is perfect for my build. So if I was to go on here and look for the mana one, bear with me, here we go. Adds quality that enhances mana. So you can see here we have 209 mana. If I use this again, 213 mana. And again, 214 mana. So you can look for one specific thing you really want and just juice that up really, really high. So yeah, that's how catalysts work and how they work on quality. And you can see again, this now has a quality of 20%, which is the max it can go to. Pretty much every item has a max of 20%. If we try and use another mana modifier, we get that warning there, failed to apply, item is at the max quality. So from 20%, we went from, 179 max mana to 214, which is massive. So now let's talk about the thing that breaks that rule. The rule is 20% is the max quality. But what about a breach ring? Well, breach rings, every single one have an implicit stat lock. The max quality is 50%. Every single breach ring has that same thing, which means you can push anything up 50% quality, not just 20. So if you had the exact same ring as this, except it was a breach ring, I could keep pushing that mana up, which is why breach rings are some of the best in the game. So what I would suggest is as you're farming endgame and you get all these breach rings, a lot of them are going to be like basic like this with nothing on. So you would just take them, you could do this, 76 to mana, you could do this, 20 to dexterity, and if you think that's bad, you'd throw it away. If you got a really good roll, you would then work with that to make it a really good endgame item. Okay, so we talked about getting a good base item and the importance of, finding a good item we want to craft with. Well, one of the ways we can make sure that the very first roll on our good base item is something that we want is with essences. Essences let us tailor the first roll of the item. So essences are, as you're playing through the game, there's like these areas where monsters are frozen in time. You even see them during the campaign. You click on these monsters that are frozen, they all pop out, you beat them, and they drop an essence. They look like this. These things here, these are essences. And this is, I've got like custom stash tabs which you can buy in the store if you want them, but you don't need them. You can just store them in general tabs if you want them. You can just have them here like this. So essences. Essences come in two forms. You have the basic, and you have the greater essences. In 300-ish hours of playing, I found one greater essence. So I don't want to talk about them. They're better, but they're pretty much non-existent. I just can't find any. So let's talk about these normal essences, because you will get a lot of these. These make sure that when you turn an item from a normal to a magic, so white to blue, the first thing that comes, you can choose. So we'll use these breach rings as an example because we've already talked about these. So breach rings, I've got 3 normal breach rings. These are just white quality, and we'll turn these into magic. So rather than using one of these, the Orb of Transmutation, which would turn it into a magic item with one modifier, we can pick what that first modifier is going to be. So I'm playing as a sorceress, so I would probably choose, out of all these, you've got like mana, life, defense, physical, fire, cold. I would choose either the caster modifier, or I think there's a mana one. There's Here we go, mana modifier. So on my rings, I would want like caster stats or mana stats. And it can be anything under that, you know, that umbrella definition. So on these breach items, if I was to use this caster modifier, it can still be a low roll, which means it's trash. But let's have a look. The first one, 15% increased cast speed. Not bad. If we use it again, 18% cast speed. So you see that rolled a tier 2, that rolled a tier 3. And then if we use like a mana modifier, 15 mana per enemy killed, tier 5. So you can see you're not guaranteed a perfect roll. You're not guaranteed a perfect stat. You're not guaranteed max mana even with that. It's just something in that definition. So, I mean, I think that their 18% cast speed is not bad. I would probably risk, you know, giving that another upgrade to try it again. 169 to mana. See that now, tier 12 mana and 18% cast speed is really good. In fact, I think mine has 178 mana and no cast speed on it. So this is a really good starting item. So I can then further craft with that. And there's no guarantee here. It's still really RNG, but you're kind of limiting that RNG from anything in the game to, you know, mana, physical, defense. So I think they're really good. They're a really good way to upgrade your normal items if you want to craft from scratch, especially things like breach rings. Yeah, that's essences. Okay, now let's talk about the next big upgrade system that comes from expeditions. So expeditions have their own, you know, whole system that lets us tailor stats on an item. So if we go on our map device, expeditions are these things here. They're the like a swirly thing. Swirly thing. There are none. There are no expeditions. Here we go. This thing here. So this is like it's like a circle with like a swirly thing and 3 dots. That's an expedition. You can always check here if you're not sure what things are. That's an expedition. So that's basically there'll be a person at a stall somewhere on that map, and you'll go there and you'll place charges around and you'll reveal chests and monsters, and those chests will have items in them. The things we're looking for are these things here. They will drop these things here, artifacts, and you can see there's like art, broken circle, sun, order, all these different things, and they will drop exotic coinage. Now, these let us use an upgrade system. So if we take these out of our stash, let me just put these away, and let's take a bunch of these out. Okay, now you want to talk to your expedition NPCs. So if you come over to, I've got them here. If you're in your hideout, you can just find them in your decorations, NPCs, they're here. And these are the people that you use these items with. So you can see here, Tujin, Gwenin, and Rog. If we go over to them, Tujin has belts and rings, Gwenin has weapons, and then Rog has armor. So these guys will have some basic items that we can get. Now, usually you'll look at these and they'll just be trash. They'll just be terrible. And what you can do is you can use the exotic coinage to refresh their inventory. So if I probably need the most is armor. So if we were to go to the armor one and we press refresh, we have, I think, 22 exotic coinage. We can refresh the stock. And you can just look what they have. They've got a 65 chest piece, nothing really exciting. They got a 70 helmet with 30% increased rarity of items. That's pretty good. They got some things. And what you do is you'll keep rolling them until you find something you want. So I've rolled it a few times. I'm down to 15. I've rolled it like 7 times, and I found these boots. So they've got these boots here, level 75, which is pretty good for my level. It's fine, and it has 30% movement speed, which is better than what I have. It has 124 to life, 38% cold resistance, 30% lightning resistance, and 93% energy shield. So it's pretty good compared to what I have. It's okay. So what you can do now is you can say you want to get it. So to buy it, you need 2 of these little cups, and I've got like 100. So we press buy, and now there is an option. There is an option here to re-roll the prefix modifiers. So what we do is when we get these items from these vendors, we can tailor them without using crafting materials. So we're just using the things we found from expeditions. So you can see here, we can re-roll movement speed, energy shield, or max life. I don't want to re-roll that because they're pretty good. I want to keep the movement speed. So you could upgrade it, or you could skip. If you skip, the next thing they offer will be 50% higher cost. So we'll skip it because I want to keep the movement speed. Now the next option is to re-roll the bottom part, cold resistance or lightning resistance. I want to keep both of those. So I'll probably take that as it is and, you know, maybe craft it a little bit myself. But either way, I'm going to keep that as they are because it's a pretty good item, but I don't want to remove everything. So if we press take, we've now got this item. I've rolled it a bunch more. I'm not really finding anything I really want. So I'm just going to buy something else to show you the upgrade system again. So there's a basic chest here that's nothing crazy. If we buy it, You can press buy. And now you've got here, remove all prefixes. So we could try this, look. We could try to remove the prefixes so that then you can put your own on. So if you press upgrade, it would remove, you know, the energy shield and the spirit. So now it has nothing. And then you can add a suffix, which is, you know, those things there is fire and attribute requirement. You can add one. So we just got life regen. And now it's given us an option to re-roll all of those suffixes. So why not? Just to show you. Now we've got lightning resistance, intelligence, and stun threshold. We can then go add a prefix. Sure. Max energy shield. So you can see here, you can then re-roll that again. Max life. There's a lot we can do with these items. You can have a lot of fun here. You can spend a lot of time just like trying to roll different things. It is really, really RNG. So I don't think it's an amazing guaranteed endgame system, but I've had a few really good items from here, so it's definitely worth checking out. Okay, speaking of RNG, let's talk about the most random and risky thing you can do in this game, and that is chance orbs. Chance orbs, I have never had anything good from one, but hopefully while recording, we'll have a really, really good one. So if you go and get these things here, Orb of Chance, I'm going to buy a couple from the exchange just to show you what they look like. So if we go, I want Chance Orbs, Orb of Chance, and I'll use Exalters. I'll get like 3, 18. Right, I'll buy 3 just to show you. 2, 3. Okay, so I've got 4 now. Let me show you how these work. Unpredictably upgrades a normal item to unique rarity or destroys it. So if you are looking for a specific unique, so some of the best uniques in the game are on amulets, belts, rings. There's a really good glove one. If you're looking for a specific unique, I'm currently looking for a few, you can use a chance orb. It will either give you a random unique from that family, or it will give you nothing. So I've grabbed a bunch of normal rings. So I've grabbed a bunch of standard normal rings, not that one. I've got 4 white rings. Then now, if I use these orbs of chance, there is a chance I'll get a really good ring, or a chance I'll get nothing at all. So let me show you. Nothing. 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 So that's chance orbs. There is a chance to get some of the best uniques in the game, or a chance to get nothing at all. If you've had a really good go at these, let me know what your success was. I've never had one work, but I've seen people roll incredible things with this, and they've made loads of divines off it. So yeah, that's chance orbs. Use them at your own risk. Okay, more talk about risking items with RNG. Let's talk about corruption. Corruption, when you make an item corrupted, you corrupt it unpredictably, giving it a chance to have a very good outcome or a very bad outcome, or do nothing at all. An example of this is you use these Val Orbs, these 3 red heads, these weird looking gems. You would right click, use it on an item, and it would corrupt it. So a positive example of this is my chess piece. It has 3 gem slots, when usually, whatever you call these, rune slots, whatever they're called in this game, it has 3. Normally it can only have 2. So the corruption was really good and gave it an extra slot, meaning I could push my armor, evasion, energy shield 20% higher by having an extra rune in there. So they can be really, really good. If you have a roll of something that's pretty good, the corruption can push that roll higher than what is allowed. So what is it? There's a limit to what that roll can go. Corruption will push it above that limit. Additionally, it could just completely ruin the item, bring all the stats down, and it's complete luck. Now, rather than just go for pure RNG with these Val Orbs, what you can do is you can do the Trial of Chaos. Now, the Trial of Chaos is multiple floors, multiple challenges in a row, and once you get to endgame, you can go quite far with these. You can see here, you've got 10 trials in a row here. So you can do 10 full trials, and at the end of every single trial, you have an option to leave or to keep going. And as you're here, you'll be given corrupted items as rewards. So rather than risking your own potentially really good items, you can get a chance to get fully corrupted items here that have the really good stats that you're looking for. So like multiple gem slots, extra rolls, new implicit stats, things like that. I was there yesterday on my monk, and I saw an item that was like +1 to all power charges, +1 to power charge capacity on the item rolled from the corruption. So it's really good. You can find some really cool things there. So yeah, definitely get involved with that. And not only from this place do we get these corrupted items, we also get soul cores. So I'll show you on the exchange. So we go soul cores. These are what we can be offered in the Trials of Chaos. Now, these replace items. They work like runes. So on your items, you're going to have these rune sockets, and you're going to have like increased armor, energy shield. You might have like fire resistance, cold resistance, lightning resistance, things like that. There's not that much we get offered on the runes. However, you could put in a soul core, and these give much cooler things. So you can see here, this one here gives plus 15 to spirit or 10% increased rarity. Some give like really unique things: crit damage, crit bonus, increased freeze build-up. So there's some really interesting ones here. 5% to all elemental resistances. There's really, really good ones. And if you're making like a BIS perfect item that you don't think you're going to replace, putting a soul core in it is a really good thing you can do. Not only that, but if you do find them and you don't want to use them, you can go on the exchange, and you can, some of them are worth so much. Look at this, the soul core of Azkappa. People are going to give you 223 Exalted Orbs, one of these. So if you had one, you could just throw it on, get 200 Exalted Orbs, just like that. So there's a lot you can do with these. They're very sought after. They're very rare because you have to run the entire Trial of Chaos and hope you get them. So yeah, these are really cool, and they're one thing that has made me constantly keep running these Trials of Chaos. Okay, another endgame system which we haven't really talked about is rituals. So I personally am not the biggest fan of rituals because my luck has just been really bad. But rituals, basically, if you run the ritual, they are the red icon on the map. They're these ones here, these like red ritual icons. This is your rituals. There'll be a circle. You'll defeat monsters in the circle. It will give you tribute, and you can use that tribute to get items. Now, the things that they offer you are random. They could be really good. They could be really bad. And one of the things they can offer you is these things here, Omens. Now, Omens completely change the way you craft. This is super, super mid-max endgame stuff that 90% of people probably aren't going to touch. But basically, if you're looking to get the perfect item and be really careful with what affixes you're changing around, these can help that. So things like, there are some that are like for battle. So this will, while this is in your inventory, if you reach low life, your energy shield will come back, things like that. But some affect crafting. So this one here, while this item is in your inventory, your next Exalted Orb will add only prefix modifiers. So we looked at prefixes and suffixes when we were doing the expedition stuff, and this will make sure that you only get a prefix. So if you're trying to like really tailor your gear, you can run loads and loads and loads of rituals, use your tributes to get these things or get them off the exchange. Like this one here, Chaos Orbs will remove only suffix modifiers. So if you're trying to remove something, you can make sure you're just removing the suffix. So there's a lot you can do with these. If you like rituals, if you want to run a ton of rituals, you can also just grab them off here if you want. Again, very sought after because they are super, super endgame. And I don't think there's a lot of people running rituals compared to like breaches. Okay, now the last thing to talk about when we talk about upgrading our gear and making like the best gear we can is from Deleriums. So if you go on your map, these things here, they look like, I don't know, two pincers, like a machinery thing. That's a Delerium. So you want to run a Delerium, and as you go into the map, very, very close to the portal, there will be a big mirror. You go through the mirror, and the whole screen will go kind of like, I don't know, grey-ish, and you'll fight loads of these Delerium monsters. There'll be a counter in the bottom left that goes up the more of these you defeat, and defeating the most will give you loads and loads of the Delerium drops. Now, the Delerium drops look like this. Distilled ire, guilt, greed, paranoia, envy, all that. They're like emotions. And you want to collect a bunch of these because they're used for a really cool endgame crafting system. Okay, so if we go to the passive tree, let's say all of our stuff is in this section here. I'm on a sorceress. All my stuff is in the top, in the mana section. Let's say you wanted something that was down here, and you didn't have the points to get all the way down here, but you want that node. You can get it. You can get that node as a stat on your amulet. So you can see here, this node over here is lit up. Conservative casting, increased mana regen, and reduced cost of mana skills. It's lit up because I have it on my amulet because I crafted it. So let's say you wanted that. You wanted to craft that. You press Alt, or I think it's thumbstick on controller, and it'll say here, to craft that, you need distilled emotions, disgust, ire. So all you would do is you would go here, and you would take the items that you need into your inventory, and you would craft them onto the amulet. So let's see if I've got any amulets to show you. So if we go, do I have any amulets? Here we go, we've got an amulet here, a basic amulet. And then if I take a bunch of these Delerium, I'll take one of these. I'm just taking random ones. and one of these. If I use these, 1, 2, 3, and then put the amulet in, this will put feel no pain, increased armor, evasion rating, and increased stun threshold. So you would instill, and now this allocates feel no pain. So if we put this on, and then we go on the passive tree, I've got no idea where feel no pain is. I guess it's in the warrior section. There it is. Feel no pain. Increased armor and evasion rating, increased stun threshold. So that is now permanently on our character, which is really cool. So that's something you can do. Another trick you can do with these, if you want to find more of them, if you want to find more Deliriums and go more into that endgame system, you can actually take these. So again, we'll just take this one here, for example, and you can use them. So we use 3 of these where they distilled guilt, and we'll use a waystone. So if we put a waystone in, and it will add a Delirium modifier. Players in the area are 27% delirious. So now, when you go into that waystone, there will be a bit of Delirium all over. So there is a chance, even in a non-Delirium map, to get Delirium dropped. So that's something else you can do, which I think is a pretty cool thing to try and get more of these, because some of these down here are much harder to find, and if you wanted to get them off the exchange from Alva, they would set you back quite a bit. So yeah, you can use that to try and farm more if the passive node you're looking for needs these really high sought after and rarer emotions. So yeah, that's Deliriums. I think that's everything. I think that's pretty much all of the endgame systems. There are some other like super niche things. You know, there's like the really rare gems. There's some other things that you can use in the crafting tree. There's certain materials that you can use for like removing nodes, but I wanted to cover like all of the endgame systems quite broadly, but go into enough detail if you've never seen them or never interacted with them. But yeah, I'm gonna wrap it up here. If you have made it all the way to the end, thank you so much for watching all the way through. If you found this useful and you like this style of guide, do consider subscribing to the channel. I do make a ton of guides. I'm making loads of Path of Exile right now. I'm trying to cover all of the systems in the game and make them as easy to understand as possible. So yeah, subscribing helps me out a ton. If there's any other tips you would give for like endgame crafting and upgrading, let people know in the comments down below. If there's anything you want to ask, I'll try my best to answer as well. Let me, ask me down there. I'll try my best to answer. But that's it from me. Thank you so much for watching. Catch you in the next one.